Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkle Droid. Today I want to talk a little bit about some trends that I've seen in television lately. So I'm going to be doing a compare and contrast on some disturbing images and scenarios in television. Now, when I say disturbing, I don't mean bad. It's just something that may be traditionally considered kind of shocking and a little bit of a gut wrench to the audience. So, fair warning. Some of the images below are pretty gory, pretty upsetting. So if you're like me and you need a little bit of time to get ready before you see something like that, just kind of letting you know, these are the tamest pictures I could find of examples of what I'm going to be talking about, but they still may be disturbing to some people. So just letting you know. Another quick kind of warning here at the beginning. If you haven't seen Season 4 of Game of Thrones, Season 5 of The Walking Dead, or any of the show Hannibal, though that one really should kind of be a giveaway. I mean, just, rhyme his name with something and then you'll know what he does. So with the exception of Hannibal, if you haven't seen those first two shows up to Season 4 or Season 5, maybe go check those out, finish them up before you come back to this video, and then I'd love to hear your own thoughts on what I'm going to be talking about. So, what is the disturbing topic that I'm going to be covering? It's cannibalism. Oh no! It's popped up in all three of these shows, and it's been presented in three different ways, and I have, some opinions on how that was done, and not that my opinion counts for much, but I do think it's kind of interesting to examine how each of these shows handles this specific scenario, and to kind of look at why each scenario is disturbing kind of in its own way. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to kick things off with Game of Thrones Season 4, The Thenns. All right, so if you remember from Season 4 of Game of Thrones, we are hanging out with the wildlings up north, and we encounter a new group of wildlings that Tormund and Ygritte and all of the other wildlings we're kind of familiar with kind of stumble across as they're all getting together to go down towards the wall. And this new group are the Thenns. And even among wildlings, they're kind of avoided and a little bit taboo because they are a group that willfully practices cannibalism. So the first scene that we encounter them in, Tormund is talking to them a little bit, and you can tell that all the wildlings tend to give these guys a pretty wide berth, just because they don't agree with this practice. It's obviously something that's still very taboo in this universe, in this world, but it's part of the culture of this group of wildlings, and so it's just what they do. The way the show presents this is really great because obviously you see things like, okay, there's an arm, they're going to eat the arm. He makes threats, their leader to this little boy, telling him that he's going to eat his people. But you never see too much of the actual consumption. I don't think you even see almost any consumption of what is supposed to be assumed human flesh. So it's very interesting the way they've handled it. It's a very assumed kind of horror, a very assumed kind of disturbing, because you know what they do. And once you know what they do, you're always kind of wondering, what are they eating there? What's in the bag? Like, you just kind of have that underlying sense of, ooh, these guys make me feel uncomfortable. You almost assume or take on Tormund and Ygritte's attitude toward them, because throughout the progression of all the wildlings down towards the wall, they still remain very other. You never get a moment where you kind of sympathize with any of the Thenns or any of the, any of the people in their group. You're still very much with Tormund and Ygritte, and they're still very kind of apart from you as this group that practices this thing. And I think Tormund said it best. Yeah, you just don't like them very much. They're not a very likable group. So the way this one is handled is they're just kind of other. They're just kind of separate, and they're accepted. And so you as an audience member, you accept that they're there because they kind of have to be. But at no point do you ever sympathize with them. You don't really like hate them. I mean, Tormund does, but as an audience member, you never go, wow, I really hate them. They're just kind of bad, but there's no huge emotional push to really hate them. They don't eat anybody you like, essentially. So that's the first example that I'm bringing up in Game of Thrones. And now we're going to move on to The Walking Dead, Season 5. All right. So, like I said, started this last night. At least I think I said it. I started this last night with my boyfriend. And it was really tough to watch. Like, I mean, and this is where the scenes, or the pictures that are up here are disturbing even to me, just because it's, oh man, it's just so disturbing because it's a combination of a lot of things. One, it's incredibly violent. It is incredibly bloody, and you're used to that in this show, but you're not used to it happening so much to the living characters, the human characters. You're used to seeing zombies' heads get bashed in, or, a knife through the eye of the zombie that's coming through the fence. But those aren't people anymore. I mean, those are monsters. So there's like a different little switch that goes off in your brain, it seems like, when it's someone who's human and you're watching that person suffer and that person be afraid and that person watch what's about to happen to them, and having it be other human beings that are doing it. Like, there's something really, really fucked up about that. And so it's just, man, it was so hard to watch. Intriguing for sure, but definitely hard to get through. So as you can see, it kicks off, and the other huge element of this is, unlike with the Fens, where they're never eating anybody we like, or, going after anybody we like, right away in Walking Dead, it's our guys. It's our main dudes that are in serious trouble with these cannibals. And so just your heart is in your throat the entire time until they're out of, the terminus area where these guys are. And so it kicks off, and you're basically watching this slaughterhouse ritual that these guys go through, where they lure unsuspecting people to terminus and, make them feel like it's safe, and then they kill them, and then they clean up and they wait for the next group. And it's just so organized. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so terrifying, because these people are so used to murdering and eating other human beings that it just ceases to feel like something you can even grasp almost. You're just like, how does anybody do that? And, you're watching as they're going, you can see on this picture, they're going down the line and just kind of draining these guys. They're cutting their throats. And they're getting closer to, Glenn, and getting closer to Daryl and Rick and Bob. And you're just like, no, I don't like this at all. This is terrible. Just someone come in and stop it, because I can't do it anymore. So as you keep going, it's just, there's something so visceral about this, because they're not afraid to show all of the grittiness of this scenario. I mean, when you think about cannibalism, it's a really disturbing thought. It is just one of the most taboo things in almost every culture. I mean, there are those cultures that it has been practiced in, and those are a little different, but especially in Western culture, oh my goodness, it's just so taboo in our brains, and they are not afraid to go there here with the grittiness factor. I mean, you see so much. Oh God, here's the one I hate. I'm going to scroll past it, I think. I don't know. Okay, yeah. So they're just not afraid to go there. And It worked. Like, they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish with this, but it was heavy-handed, and I just felt like it was unnecessary. Um, Not to, again, this is not to say that it was bad. It They accomplished what they wanted to do. The audience, me, I, super disturbed. Way not okay. I mean, I was trying to eat Chinese food, for God's sake, and I had to be like, well, I guess I'll eat that tomorrow, because I wasn't going to do it after watching that. I just wasn't going to do it. And I mean, it continues. You're watching them catch one of our main guys here, Bob, and then he wakes up and he hasn't got a leg, and he's just got this hunk of Bob, and he's eating him, and it just, oh my God, you just hate him. You hate him. It's not like the Thens where you're kind of like other and separate because they're not doing anything to the characters that you associate with. Here it's so personal. I mean, you've been through so much with these characters on The Walking Dead, and suddenly this group is trying to enact this horrible taboo scenario on these characters that you're so attached to. And I mean, it's just, again, it's heavy-handed, it's gritty, it's right in your face. Look, there's a hunk of Bob in that asshole's hand, and he's just nomming away, and it makes you so mad. Like, I'm getting mad now, and I'm not even watching the show, and I even know what happens, and it's, yeah. So this is the most extreme, I don't know, depiction of something like this that I've seen in any media, in any, movie, in any book. I've read books where this happens to characters. This one, though, was so visceral for some reason, and just, I mean, it was like ice right through your gut. It was so hard to watch, and at the same time, it worked, and it did what they wanted the audience to feel, that utter disgust and horror, and they did it. And it was kind of risky because I feel like, and maybe this is me just being sensitive, I feel like it could have gone, it could have gone too far, and people would have been like, whoa, what the hell are you doing? You can't. No, I don't think so. But, as far as I know, I'll have to look into it. I probably should have done that before this video. As far as I know, I mean, people were disturbed, but I don't think anyone was saying, whoa, you went too far. For me, it almost did. I don't know that I liked the way they handled it. Again, I'm not saying it was bad. It was effective. I don't think I personally liked it because it was just so hard to watch. And it's tough because I want to watch this show. I want to know what happens to my characters, my little zombie fighting babies. I want to know that they make it. But I have to get through this cannibalism crap to find out what goes on with them, and that's hard for me, just because it was so visually disturbing. I mean, they really went there, and it just, wow. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, and especially that opening scene where they're kneeling by the blood draining trough. I was just, I felt sick the whole time. It was so hard to watch. So anyway, there's that. That's the way they handled it. Again, not my favorite, but hey, it worked. All right, last but certainly not least, in my opinion, we are going to talk about this guy right here. All right, so if any of you have been following NBC's Hannibal, you know that it's in its final season right now. Unfortunately, NBC decided not to pick it up again, and I think Brian Fuller is going to move on to some different projects, but this specific show is almost exclusively about cannibalism. I mean, it's about so much more. But Hannibal Lecter is arguably one of the most, infamous villains in literature, in media, he's the most famous cannibal probably in the world. The most famous fictional cannibal in the world. I'm probably going to give props to the real ones because, holy crap, this is hard enough to imagine in a fictional setting. But it's just, man, you kind of can't talk about this without talking about this guy. So the way that this show handles cannibalism had to be very specific because it is such a huge part of one of their main characters. And if you had something like, think about trying to watch, those of you who saw, and I hope all of you did because I feel like I'm spoiling a lot, those of you who saw episode 1, season 5, Walking Dead, imagine trying to watch 3 seasons of that shit. You'd have a panic attack and you'd die before you finished, right? I mean, maybe that's just me, but like this is a show that went, all right, this is a hugely disturbing concept that we have in our show, but we got to make people want to watch it. And we have to make people want to watch it in a way that keeps them invested in different aspects of the show. So you're not just focusing on the cannibalism. So a huge part of it was the presentation. A huge part of it was the writing of the character of Hannibal Lecter. And the third, potentially for me, most important piece here was the phenomenal acting by Mads Mikkelsen, who plays Hannibal Lecter in this show. I mean, this guy just makes you not want to care that he eats people. He is so intricate and charming and cold and above everybody at the same time. It's such a strange combination. I mean, he's so good at getting away with this shit that you just kind of want to root for him. You're like, all right, well, you're just kind of doing it and no one's stopping you and no one's figuring this out. Okay, well, I guess you're just really good at this. Good for you. I don't know. You're just kind of invested in how much this guy is able to get away with, and you just stop being horrified at some point and start being impressed. The other thing is that all of the people who end up on the plate in this show, I mean, it never looks disgusting. It never looks like people. There's attention to detail. It's like this character takes that ugly thing that he does and tries to make it as beautiful as possible, which is a fascinating trait, and it also makes it so that you're looking at this stuff going, oh yeah, it's people, I should be horrified. Oh no, he's eating people, but it's really pretty and it looks really good. And that's almost more disturbing than what we saw above with The Walking Dead, where it was just like blood and guts, and I've got a hunk of Bob and I'm eating him and rah, 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 rah. And this, you're looking at it going, you're like, wow, oh my gosh, that looks great. Damn it, no, I shouldn't be thinking that. It's people, remember. It's people. Cannibalism is wrong, remember that. Like, it's almost like you have to keep reminding yourself that this is not a good thing because he makes it look so amazing. And so you've got this combination of it doesn't look that horrifying, and the character himself is so interesting, and there's so many layers to who he is and, in fact, what he is, that you almost can't hate him. You can get frustrated with him. I have sat through many an episode of the show going, oh my God, Hannibal, why? Please don't. But I don't think I've ever hated him. Okay, maybe once in the most recent season, I was like, you asshole, you have lost all your privileges. Go stand in the corner and think about what you did. But I mean, mostly in this show, it's almost like you never hate this guy. Again, you kind of root for him because he's so damn good at what he's doing. All of his misdirections and his manipulations, it's amazing. And you can almost never tell whether this guy has genuine feelings, genuine emotions, genuine connections to people, or if it's all just a crazy manipulation. And he's so goddamn proud of himself the whole time. And you're like, yeah, you have a right to be. You're getting away with so much. Good for you. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it. Not that I'd want to, but yeah, I mean, he's just, this amazingly complex character. Again, the acting on the part of Mads is a huge part to why this is successful, because what he does is monstrous, but you wonder if he is a monster or not. It's very, very interesting because you see him seemingly connect with other people and seemingly have relationships with characters. And it's so convincing that it makes you wonder if it's real or not. And, it's it's such an interesting show. And I think that lends itself to when the actual cannibalism comes into play, because you watch all of this kind of refined and beautiful work put into these dishes that are essentially murdered people. And you forget that to get there, he did this. Like when you see him do something like run a leg, a human leg, through this bone saw and this meat cutter, you're like, oh yeah, this is horrifying. I forgot. And it almost seems out of place, but it's these subtle touches, these subtle horrifying touches that are brilliant reminders of the caliber of, character that you're dealing with in Hannibal Lecter. And so it's just, man, you just forget what he is until you get these glimpses of it. And it's because it's masked in the sophistication and this kind of beauty that's just, it's macabre and it's dark, but it's so alluring and it's so, intoxicating, and you feel like you're getting sucked into that world. It is, in my opinion, out of the 3 shows, this is the show that handles this disturbing content the best, because you find yourself being disturbed not so much by what you're seeing, but by your own reaction to it and your own almost slow acceptance of it as you kind of become ingratiated and, involved in these characters' lives. You enter that world, and since none of the other characters know that Hannibal is a cannibal, it's almost like this secret that you have with this specific character. And so it's you and Hannibal that know that he eats people. And again, the disturbing part is not so much that he eats people, it's just that you slowly kind of start to almost accept it. You're just kind of like, you know what, this is just what he does. And it's horrifying when you have those moments of, whatever. And then you think about it and you're like, wait, no, that is awful. Wow. I don't know. For me, it was always very strange to almost find myself sympathizing with this character and then remembering what he did to people and going, now that's a little disturbing. I just had a huge amount of empathy for what is essentially someone who can perform seriously monstrous acts. And, that to me is an achievement kind of above what both The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones did with this specific scenario. I mean, yeah, they were able to show you and kind of give you that gut-wrenching moment, or I guess in Walking Dead's case, it was like 15 minutes of, oh God. But what this show does is above that, and it's something deeper, and it messes with you almost on a psychological level where you're just like, man, I don't even know what I believe about this guy anymore. I know that eating people is bad. Why do I feel then that this guy should not get caught? I mean, you have moments like that because of the way the show is written and presented. And it's not so much about the visual, gory, gritty, disgusting aspect of cannibalism. It's about that subtle, almost hidden way that it's disturbing. And it's the fact that you know and he knows, but nobody else knows. And you watch so many scenes where they're all eating dinner and this guy's making cannibal puns left and right. And you're just like, oh God, like, what? It's done so beautifully. It really is. And that's why, in my opinion, this is the show that handles, a very disturbing topic the best. And it's because they had to. It's because it's a pinnacle of their show. It's a defining characteristic of one of the main characters, the namesake of the show. I mean, it had to be done in a way that wasn't going to make people's stomachs just turn over every second of every episode. It had to be something that was intriguing and almost inviting, or people just weren't going to watch. Again, I could not imagine a whole show of, episode 1, season 5 of The Walking Dead. That was so hard to watch it got across what they needed to get across, but you could not do an entire show that had that level of, intensely disturbing material. You couldn't do it. So, I mean, in conclusion, it's interesting to look at all three of these shows because they're very popular, and to look at this specific scenario just because it happens to show up in all three of them, and to see the ways that they handle it. I've had a lot of fun kind of thinking about um, how they compare to each other. So, in my opinion, I think Hannibal was the show that handled this specific content, the you know cannibal aspect of things, handled it the best because they had to. I mean, people just weren't going to watch if it was too hard to watch. And as far as shock value, God, Walking Dead takes that one. It just, whew, it was really just kind of like, if you're not ready for it, it'll almost knock the wind out of you. It feels like falling backwards and having all the air knocked out of your lungs. And then Game of Thrones, the Thens aren't a huge part of that show, so I can see why they didn't worry too much about that. They have plenty of other disturbing shit on that show. They didn't really need to up the gore or the horror factor very much because that show's got plenty of that. So anyway, in conclusion, it was just really fun to kind of look at all these shows and think about the way that they handle it, and the way that audience members experience it, to kind of share my own personal experiences with you guys. And until next time, have a good one, and I will talk to you guys all very soon.